For more on the sports betting bill, let's bring in one of the co-sponsors, State Senator Niraj Antani, a Republican. So I want to ask you first off, just the status right now. Where do we stand in the process of getting this thing passed?
Absolutely. Well, the bill has been introduced. We've had 2 committee hearings in the Senate Gaming Committee on this bill, and I think we're very hopeful that we'll be able to get to a place that it's voted out of the Senate very, very soon.
When you look at the states around you, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Indiana, Michigan, all have some form of legalized sports betting. Do you have research or numbers that indicate how much money is going outside of Ohio to those other states?
Well, we don't know exactly how much, but we do know anecdotally that those Ohioans who, live on border communities are crossing state lines. But look, we also know that this has been done successfully in other states and that Ohio should be on the cutting edge of this. And what I know is that Ohioans want it. I hear it all the time since that Supreme Court case happened that, allowed us to do this, and they want it right now.
And when you consider that some people are taking their business outside the state, a lot of people in Ohio feel like that they're dragging their feet on this. What is the holdup? What's taking so long to get this thing through?
Well, I think that, we operate on 2-year cycles in the General Assembly. Unfortunately, the bill in that last cycle was not able to pass. I think I'm hopeful now that we've got some new sponsors, of which I am one, that, we will be able to get this done. But, you're right. And it's not just the border state argument. I mean, everybody across the state that I know wants this. And frankly, it's something that can be, a boon to our economy, our casinos, racinos, our sports teams, our, lottery agents at bars and restaurants. And it's an economic boon as well that other states are seeing that we are not.
I know the economic argument is a strong one. Do you have any sort of projections or idea of how much money this could bring in and also what that money would be used for here in Ohio?
Yeah, we've got a projection based on the last bill, but we really want to just be very careful in setting that expectation. So, we'll see, what happens as the market develops once we legalize the bill. But as the bill currently stands, 98% of the money, the tax revenue that is earned by the state will go to education, K through 12 education. 2% of it will go to combating gambling addiction. But I think it's important to note that, this is not about making the state money. This is about, frankly, a form of entertainment that Ohioans want across the state in every community, and we at the end of the day are the people's representatives and their senators. And our job is to listen to the people, and the people want to be able to bet on sports.
The bill would allow for 40 sports betting license, 20 mobile, 20 in person. I know every number on something like this has to feel somewhat arbitrary, but I'm curious, 40. Do you think that's too high, too low? How do you arrive at the number 40?
Well, I think it's about right. An original conception of the bill, there are 11 casinos and racinos. There are 9 sports teams in Ohio professionally, who all want to participate. They're probably the main entities. The bill does not guarantee them a license. They are probably the likely participants. So, that's not necessarily the reason that the number's at 20. It could be sort of taken that that's the number. There are other entities in Ohio, like I know the Canton Football Hall of Fame is interested. I know, some minor league teams may be interested, but, I think that's probably in and around that number. But look, this doesn't prohibit us from, changing the law in the future to create more if there needs to be more, but it's probably right around. And if you think about even the 20 in person, right? We've got the 3 C's in Cincinnati, Columbus, and Cleveland. We've got, the sort of mid-sized cities in Dayton, where I represent, Toledo, Akron, Canton, Youngstown. And then you've got, the rural parts of the state who should be able to participate. So if you think about the number 20, it sort of gives enough to the 3 C's, gives enough to the mid-sized cities, and then, leaves enough left over to have, a few in some of the rural parts of the state, because really, every part of Ohio should be able to participate in this.
As the language is written right now, it would be $1 million for a 3-year betting license. Are you worried that price point is so high that, let's say, a locally owned, a family-owned sports bar or a bowling alley, that they can't afford it, and then all the money ends up going to the rich folks who maybe don't need it as much?
Well, the bowling alley and the restaurant, they're not going to do this through the Casino Control Commission. Their way to participate is through the Lottery Commission. And in the bill, it does allow lottery agents. You see those Keno machines that, you can play the lottery on now at bars, restaurants, bowling alleys, gas stations and grocery stores. That the bill does set up a form to do that. I think, I'm hopeful we can improve that section, but they're not going to be the ones. But, frankly, look, this is at the end of the day gambling. And while we understand that the people want this, we have to be careful in how we do it. And so, yes, the cost of a license is high because we need, legitimate, proven gambling operators to be the ones doing this.
I want to ask you a little bit about those 20 mobile licenses. We know the big boys like DraftKings or FanDuel. It's very convenient. It is very easy to use. Are you worried at all that it's so easy to use that the issue of gambling addiction can become a thing?
Yeah, I always worry about that, but I think that there will be appropriate integrity controls put into place. I was just talking to someone yesterday of can you sort of tell if someone on their mobile app is spiraling out of control and sort of very quickly betting high amounts of dollars on a multitude of games, and could you then make sure that the mobile app cuts them off, right? Sort of like a bartender cuts off somebody who's drinking too much. Can we cut somebody off? And I think we're working through that. I do think we're going to be able to get there, but I do think we'll be able to work and get these protections in place to prevent something like that.
I know some of the pro sports franchises in the state have been lobbying for some fair market access. Browns, Reds, Crew. They love the idea of people coming to the stadium, walking up to a window, and placing a bet. Want to know what you think of that idea?
Yeah, look, I think we have to recognize that our professional sports teams are major employers and major parts of, our economy, and frankly, major brands for the state. They absolutely should have access. Their league rules do sort of, make it very specific in how they can participate. So that, is being worked through to ensure they can appropriately be a part of this. For example, right, we know that, the baseball teams can't have their in-person sports book on site. It has to be off site. So, but it can be sort of, in partnership with the Reds or the Indians, what have you. So I think that went through, but, absolutely. I think that if we're going to do this, it shouldn't just be coastal online, companies that don't have any employees in Ohio benefiting. It should be major employers like our professional sports teams who are benefiting from this as well.
College sports would be included, like in Columbus here with Ohio State football. There's a huge passion for that product. But there's also a downside of that. When I was in Toledo, I reported on a point shaving scandal for the Toledo Rockets involving football and basketball. And I understand the rules are about to change for name, image, likeness. Some of these players will be able to profit in the future. But is there a concern that players could bet on themselves, bet on their roommates, the point shaving, when you get college kids involved?
Well, so as the bill is currently structured, it actually leaves it up to the Casino Control Commission to determine what sporting events, including collegiate, if any, that you can participate in sports betting on. I personally am for it because, frankly, right now it's in the black market. And part of the reason to do this is to bring people up and out of the black market and into the sunshine, into this regulated free market that we're creating. And as you just said, you reported on something that's happened. Well, guess what? It already happened. It's going to happen anyway. Now, what we can do is make it sure it happens in a regulated and safe manner.
And to be clear, the case I discussed was a black market case, to your point. Okay, so let's get the crystal ball out. I know you wish this thing would pass tomorrow, but things move at a certain pace in the Ohio State Senate. So when do you think the first legal bet could be placed by Ohioans?
Well, the bill is currently set that the first legal bet would be on January 1st, 2022. I believe we are going to be able to make that happen. And so, hopefully you and I don't know, the Rose Bowl is usually January 3rd, but there's usually a New Year's Day game, right? And so hopefully, you and I, David, we can go down to a sports book on New Year's Day and we'll place the first bet together.
The Buckeyes will play in the college football championship game, so we'll be ready by then.
Well,
right?
That won't be until January 8th or 9th usually, right? But that'll be 8 days into this.
Hey, Senator, thank you so much for stopping by and explaining some of this bill to us.
Sounds good.